bad. And so he went up and he was like crying. And he laid Forrest Gump CD in the fire. You know what I mean? We were laughing so hard. How awesome is that? I mean, that is beautiful. Forrest Gump. Oh, man. So awesome. But you know, Micah is such a great example of a young man that never allowed himself to be bound by the temptation of trying to prove himself. He can play. He always is picking up new instruments. He can play so many different instruments so unbelievably well. And there's such a variety. For years, he played in bars in a punk band. What was it, like West Coast punk or East Coast punk? I don't know. I'm not a punk guy. You're a punk band? Angry Adam was their name. Anyway. And he played bass, you know, and would just like jump and do all this stuff all over the stage and scream. And share the love of Jesus with people. And then he'd then he picks up the Irish whistles. In fact, the first record he played on, I accidentally put flute on it. His brothers and friends started, riding him for it, Hey, Micah, the flute player. He came to me. He was so cool. He's like, hey, Jay, you think on the next printing of that CD we could just put whistles? Or acoustic guitar. Or you can go folk, you can go classic, you can go deep worship, you can go anywhere. You can listen to 50s music with your mom and dad in the car. You can do whatever you want. Because you're really free. You're not trying to prove yourself. This is not trying to prove you're God. This is the way we do it. It's like, God's done something to me. It has to happen to you. You ever met people like that? This is going to have to happen to you. It's got to happen to you. It's got to happen to you. You know what? Insecure people that never get out of insecurity will follow people like that. And it works in our culture. You prove yourself to them in some way. You're good at speaking. You're good at something. You're a great communicator. And you'll get a following. That doesn't make you in the Jesus way. Popularity doesn't mean that God's anointing is on your life. Again, the devil took him up to a very high mountain and showed him all the kingdoms of the world and their glory. And he said to him, all these things I will give you if you fall down and worship me. And then Jesus said, go, Satan, for it is written, you shall worship the Lord your God and serve him only. It's interesting that I used to always think that whole... when you read the scriptures, a lot of times you can miss the big thing, for the thing that your focus can go on something, and maybe the something that your focus you attend to in the scriptures isn't really what's being said. And so for years I thought that last temptation was about, I'm not going to worship the devil, I'm going to worship Jesus. But it really isn't about that. If you read the fine print, it's all about Jesus getting all the kingdoms of this world. So, if you bow down and worship me, I'm going to have a whole bunch of people bow down and worship you. I'm going to have everybody serving you. Now that, self-preservation and self-idolatry are the root to the fear of man. If you're trying to preserve yourself, you can't speak the truth to people. If you need something from them, if you need them to say you're proven, or what you say is the truth, you can't speak the truth. You can't speak with love. You can't love people the way they need to be loved if you're so fearful that they might reject you. If you're trying to build some sort of kingdom, then you need them. That's not the way Jesus did it. Just watch the way Jesus did it. He made it almost impossible for people to become followers. When Jesus walked on the earth, Kierkegaard said this 200 years ago, it was a difficult thing to become a follower of Jesus. It was an easy thing to understand. Over 200 years ago, he said this to us guys, to a whole youth generation. Now we have the opposite. Now it's an easy thing to become a follower of Jesus, and it's a difficult thing to understand. Why? Because that's what we do. You have to come to me to get to Jesus. You have to learn my way of thinking about Jesus. You have to start getting, now I approve of you. Have you ever wondered why, when I was a kid, I'd sit in these services, and people, I love last night when Jamie said, hey, just ask Jesus into your heart where you're sitting. I remember when I was a kid, they'd always have Thursday night at the meeting was always the night that if you could, you'd sit in the back. Because Thursday night was always the night that the guy would get out and he'd come out huffing and puffing, and he'd be like, some of you got sin in your life. You know, I'm going to give you to the count of 20 to get your pathetic rears up here. Oh, I remember this all the time. All right. And he'd count 20. I mean, counting. And they'd have some kind of like, ooh, music. And I'd be in the back. Oh, God! Oh, God! Oh, inside. But I wasn't doing it outside. Just like inside, like, it's not me. People would be like running, you know what I mean? It was like running. And I'm not trying to make it fun of like Brownsville Revival or nothing like that. It's just like, come run. And, you know, I ran there to the front because Steve Hill scared the crap out of me. That guy, you know, but it was like, come running. You know what I mean? We don't even want to go there why that whole thing broke up. But you know what I mean? We wouldn't want to believe that maybe Steve Hill has a little humanity too. But is that a problem to bring up? Because I do too. But what's the real issue? It's not whether he has humanity or I have humanity. The point is that I'm not standing up here saying, if you don't worship the way I worship, you better get your butt down here and change your life. If you don't see Jesus the way I see Jesus, you better get up here. So why? So that I can approve of you. And I can approve of your God. What is that? That is the spirit of Satan. No, not a big deal for Satan to show up in me or Steve Hill or anybody else for that matter. Why? Well, he showed up in Peter and Jesus made him the rock of the church. Okay, guys? Serious. But we have to be real about it. Generation, when you start feeling that spirit, that person is higher than you, they are not apostolic at that moment. Make sure that you realize the person in your church that is probably the most apostolic is the one that you, now not always, there's some weird people in church, but you know what I mean. A lot of times the people that ought to actually be speaking on the stage never get there because they're too holy. We were just listening to Eugene Peterson, the guy that wrote The Message. Get online and watch that guy talk sometime. Just get online. If you YouTube, get online and use it for something good. Go just type in Eugene Peterson.